The Mindset Advantage, a podcast by Arcadia Consulting, architects of change.
So hello and welcome to our next episode for our Mindset Advantage podcast series. My name is Cache Prescott, and I serve as our Director of People Experience here at Arcadia, and also one of our experts in all things related to diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and access. But also someone that speaks to topics related to women in leadership. And one of our main focuses here at Arcadia is developing and transforming people and organizations globally. And I have the extreme pleasure to hang out with Ms. Jennifer Ponder today in conjunction with the release of our latest research paper, STEM the Tide, an exploration into STEM leadership. Before I get into your credentials, I just want to say a warm welcome to you, Jennifer.
Well, thank you, Cache. I'm so excited to be here with you today and really excited to go through and share my journey with your audience. So excited.
All right. So before I get to the amazing journey, let me tell the audience a little bit about you. So Jennifer is the STEM National Program Director of the STEM Atlanta Women Foundation, Director of Technology, a keynote speaker, and a Scrum Master. In 2020, Jennifer was selected to be an Atlanta chapter co-lead for Black Women Talk Tech from Talk Tech, the Talk Tech Association, and is a constant leader for diversity, equity, and inclusion within STEM roles and industries. She continues to help communities plan their diversity and inclusion development strategies for minorities and underrepresented groups in tech. So that alone is amazing. I mean, your resume is just impressive. And I can absolutely relate to the focus on just getting more women in the areas of STEM, those STEM roles and STEM industries. I come from the world of social sciences and behavioral sciences. And so this is constantly a topic that we're talking about. Of course, we're focused on people, particularly my interest is in IO psychology, so people in the workplace. So this is something I definitely hear quite a bit about. And your passion for promoting, this particular topic and these areas is apparent from just that short introduction. But I want to learn a little bit more about just, where that passion comes from. So if you wouldn't mind, can you tell us a little bit about your own journey when it comes to the world of STEM?
Sure, definitely. Well, I'll just tell you, for me, as a lover of technology from a small kid, it just really was something I always loved to get on my desktop computer. I remember this like it was yesterday, being in 4th, 5th grade, running home to play games on the computer, build different software, just learning a lot about technology. And then coming up towards 10th grade and taking my first business technology class as a sophomore, I was like, this is what I want to do. So, just like other folks in high school and college, you change your mind. You're like, I went into mass communication. I really loved being on camera, hence the public speaking moving forward to today. I love that. And so interviewing folks, really working in journalism, that was a dream of mine too. So that's where that started out. But then I said, I'm still into tech. It's just that fire, that passion, it was still under there. So it definitely did. And so I was working on coding websites in college for friends. Like, I'm kind of dating myself, but if we go back to the MySpace pages and putting the code behind the scenes, oh man, that was just something that was really, I loved it. And so moving forward, I would say for me, I have 10 plus years in the technology space. I started out working as a software support analyst and building HL7 interfaces. And so really I said, I love this. I want to start coding full time. And so, I went to Georgia Tech, started out, completed the software engineering program there, started out developing, really loved it. And, hence other opportunities came along. And one of the things I really specialized in is virtual reality and artificial reality. gaming coding. And I love that, just other than doing regular production code, I was like, let's see if I could take something that I had a passion for as a kid when I was running home, couldn't wait to get on my computer to play a game. And let me see how I can bring that to life for other people. And so one of the things I noticed early on, just finding my tribe in tech. How do I find other women who are in tech? Women and also women of color. And I found that very early and wanted to dig deep and give back early on in the community. And that's how I started to become a part of organizations such as STEM Atlanta Women and SCORE, Technologists of Color, and also the Power of Technology Foundation, because I really felt that, we need to build community. Also, I wanted to be a part of a space where, I felt that, you value people who have, who are highly skilled and who want to give back. And, one of my passions was, as a child coming up, you would see the doctor, the nurse, the policeman, the fireman on career day, but where were the engineers, whether they were men or women. And so something really struck a chord with me probably about 2.5 years ago. I've always wanted to give back, but I said, you know what? These young ladies, they need to see us. They need to see women in the STEM space, whether it's medical field, the engineering space, mathematics, whatever they want to do, they need to be able to see us. And so that's what really fostered that fire inside of me. Like, we need to build this talent pipeline, but we need to do it very early.
Absolutely. And you mentioned something about, finding your tribe, which leads me kind of to this next question. So, of course, when we look at the STEM sector, oftentimes when we look, we see that it's heavily male dominated. And this, of course, not only includes the traditional industries such as gassing or gas or mining, automotive, engineering, but it also includes some of the emerging fields in, what you kind of mentioned, that digital and artificial intelligence, where statistically they're saying there is about only 32% of women there. And then also cloud computing, where they're saying there's only about 14% of women in that particular field. So why do you think that is?
I think a lot of times, it can be a cultural perception, because think about it. When you hear the word engineer, whether you're a young student or you're an adult that's experienced and specialized, back in the days, you really thought of engineers as, okay, this is a man's field. That's what you saw, until the times that we came upon and seeing movies like Hidden Figures. Some people, they saw that movie for the first time, had no idea that women, as early as that time, were engineers in their own right. And they do exist. I think it's just, if we have more women showing up, and now we do, it's been over the last few years, it's been such a good thing that on the tech scene, that there's so much that has happened as far as getting women involved in conferences, speaking out at events. But I just think, there's more still that we have to do. With the cultural perception, we have to change that, and we have to do it from the top down at the companies. Whenever there's a chance for events and for allyship to place women in the front, we need to do that. A lot of times too, with young adults, young teenage girls and girls that are in elementary and middle schools, sometimes they're more of the entertainment field, teachers, nurses, typical women occupations, or what is seen as women occupations, because you can be a male and be a nurse too now. It's the gender, they tend to come at us that way, from that perspective. And younger girls don't tend to get that engineering talk early on. So that's something that STEM Atlanta Women, we like to do, where we want to show girls early on, it does not matter. We want to build that talent pipeline. We want to enrich them with the skills that they need, give them hands-on activities, and just to show them, like, you are young girls, you're going to be young women one day, but don't feel like you don't have the confidence. Don't feel like you don't have what it takes. It may be challenging, but we want you to have this challenge. We want to, have you, teach you the skills to think critically early. So I think, those are some of the things that can be helpful to kind of, really dissipate that narrative, if you will. I think that's important.
I definitely agree. And I'm a mother of three leaders in the making, little female leaders in the making. So this completely resonates with me. But as somebody that comes from, again, those social sciences, I see that socialization factor when it comes to these conversations that, educators or even family members are having with the girls that they're bringing up. So I definitely see the effects of that as well. So one of the insights that we saw through the course of doing the research for STEM the Tide was that there's a major difference between the critical leadership competencies demonstrated between STEM and non-STEM leaders. And actually, one thing that we saw was that women leaders possess better and broader leadership competencies than men. So, yay. But what has your experience been when it comes to this? Have you been led by female leaders in the past? And if so, were there any obvious differences between how you were led by, females versus the males?
Definitely. Well, Keshe, I'll tell you, yes, I have had both the women and men leaders early on, starting out as a developer in startups. One of the things I noticed in, internships and apprenticeships with women, we tend to have a well-rounded perspective, sure, so to speak, as far as mentorship, driving engagement, and just innovative ways and decision making, because a lot of times women, we have to do that at home, and so that translates over at work, and so
absolutely
we take risks, and we really translate that into what we're doing. And what I noticed from women leaders, even up to specialized areas in leadership, for me, it was always that one-to-one that you could have, that rapport that you could build, and also too that allyship, because with women, one of the things we notice a lot of times, some of our journeys are so similar where, we've had so many challenges, again, we're the person that we're the only one in our department, or the only one on the team, or the only one in the company. And so, that resonates, and you can look back and say, hey, you know what? I want to help this young lady, or, I want to help this person. And that's not an ageism comment, no matter what age you are, I want to help this person to be the best that they can be. Now, in turn, also on the men's side, now that's not to say we don't have any men who want to be allies. Sometimes they just don't know what's the best thing to do, because of course they don't want to be disrespectful, because, we all know diversity is a hot button topic, but they want to be intentional and sometimes just don't know how. Now, early on, I would say for me, the men that have been leaders for me, a lot of times, men are logical, analytical thinkers. So they're going to think, hey, what meets the ROI? What's the bottom line? And, a lot of times that communication piece, that mentorship piece, it kind of gets lost there. It's, hey, I'm having a meeting with you, but we're going to talk about metrics. We're going to talk about your performance and, how this meets the business goals of what we have. And I think there's more of a intentional talk that has to happen with leaders, like I said, again, from the top down, whether it's CEOs to CTOs, and people really getting involved to say, what, this has to change. And one of the things that, I'm really proud now is that, at the college level, and even at, because we all know nowadays you don't have to go to college to be a technologist. Gone are the days that you had to have the computer science degrees and it's off to the moon for you. Now you can get a certification, and I'm telling you, right out of college, and just you have a lucrative career. So I think just starting earlier on and just having males to focus more on the well-rounded scope of building employees. And also too, when working with women, to foster that community. I know for me and myself, I was always a person that was always thick-skinned. So it really didn't bother me. I kind of met it head on. A lot of times I would go to even conferences myself and be the only woman of color there, or the only woman there. I have been there, and so it never made me give up, though. One of the things I've always, even in any talks that I've had, just told women how, definitely make sure that you deserve to be here. You have to tell yourself that every day, have the confidence, and know you have a voice, you can take up space. You definitely deserve it, but just those are some of the things I noticed. But I think for women, we've always had to have that core, well-rounded, and we were, and not to say that, I know everybody has different upbringings, but I think with women, we have, of course, a nurturing perspective. But I think for us, we're able to see the long-term effects of the well-rounded perspective that we bring, and how an employee that we start out with, the one-on-one mentorship that we're giving them. I mean, it makes a world of a difference one day that you see that employee is going up to be a leader on their own team. And you're like, wow, this is somebody I mentored. This is somebody I poured into, communicated effectively with, really let them take risk to innovate, to do certain things. You really look at your skill set that you had and what you poured into them. But I think the vast difference is, basically, we just have to start early on, just fostering that well-rounded perspective in both men and women.
Okay, so I have a related question. So there were certain critical leadership competencies that we found in the research that are hard to find in both male and female STEM leaders. And some of the competencies that are included are collaboration and teamwork, develops others, champions change, innovates, and inspires and motivates. So from a leadership perspective, this means that leadership styles are just kind of a bit more narrowly focused, and many key areas are being underrepresented. So in your mind, how do you think this affects the STEM workforce in general? And have you seen any evidence of this in your own career?
Yes, certainly. I would say just because of with STEM and technology, a lot of times, with the technologies that we are working with, I can't speak to because I haven't worked in the medical field myself, Sure. But I have seen with, my colleagues and other folks that I know from organizations, about hearing from them, different things change. And I know within technology, things change at the speed of light. So sometimes it's not the time that you have to dial back to say, you know what? Let's stop. Let's focus on being innovative. Let's take risks right here. Let's see this deployment. We're doing something here with the whole software development life cycle right here. This production piece that we have right here. Let's stop and see how we can build a core around these competencies. I think it's so much, like I said earlier, just the things of being, bringing everything to full scale, more about the work and less about around certain competencies. That doesn't mean to say that they don't matter and they're not intentionally included in some areas, but I think there's still a lot to do and a long way to go in STEM in different areas, in math, in science, as a whole, just because there's so much out there. And I think with leaders, also, it's pretty much, hey, this is what we need you to do. We need you to go in here and effectively do this piece, but let's just kind of dial it back on this other stuff, And I think, again, this leads to, if you want a great workforce, you want great teams to be making great products and just taking the company to the next level, these things have to be included. But I think with the speed of, everything that's happening, and even in terms of, we all just seen it. We just, I know that everything is still kind of moving. We just came out of a pandemic. There's still some things lingering out here during the time of COVID, but things moved very rapidly. During that time. And even with technology, when things happen like this, you have to move. It's kind of like, can we worry about collaboration, being innovative? In this space, you did have to be innovative, but, I think it has to start at the top. You have to start out being innovative. And again, like I said, starting early on. And so one of the things I like to do with the girls who we work with, I like to, teach them certain skills for critical thinking. Like I said, how can you be innovative? How can we change these projects? So they know, like, hey, you know what? This is a different perspective I can have. Collaboration. One of the things we really, really put a lot of emphasis on is the girls working in teams. So they'll know how to collaborate on projects, because they will see that again. And so I think just fostering that early, and that's really something that, why I enjoy the work that I do, because I think, what a lot of times we may hear the word, it's a talent pipeline issue. Okay, that's one end of the spectrum. However, I think it's great when we can reach these youth early, or young teenagers early, or college students, and really add these competencies in early, so everyone, the workforce can be well-rounded, like I said. But, there's still work to do. I know there's a lot that's going on as far as the diversity, equity, and inclusion work that's out there. But I think that is something that would make it much better if we can start out early on, even develop some programs and go into the community. And that's one thing I'm very passionate about, giving back to put forth work into these type of competencies early on.
All right. So in alignment with this conversation about leadership competencies, according to our research, technical and professional expertise was actually rated as the number one leadership competency among STEM roles and industries. But of course, unfortunately, our data also suggested that women are subjected to microaggressions at work more than men are. And this actually included their technical and professional expertise being questioned on the regular basis. And in terms of just statistics, we saw that about 37 to 45% of senior women are experiencing microaggressions on a weekly basis. And so my question for you is, why do you think women are suffering from these microaggressions more than men in STEM roles and industries? And have you endured any of this throughout your career?
Well, I'll just tell you, Cache, I believe one of the ideas that I mentioned to you earlier, what I feel it is, if you are the only, meaning that you're the only woman or the only minority woman in your team or in your company, or, this can make you stand out. If the spotlight is always on you, you always feel pressure that, okay, am I performing at the top level? I got to overperform. I got to work 60 to 80 hours a week. I got to make sure that they know that I'm on top of my game. And, it will cause you to think a lot. So I think that's one of the reasons. And, it causes questioning in your judgment. And also different things to happen. And so I have experienced that at conferences and also in the workplace, where that's, oh, wow, that's a smart idea. Well, you have a great skill set for your level of, it just could be anything. And you're like, okay, I've worked very hard to get where I am. I think I'm doing very well, but it just could be the slightest comments, or either, someone not even acknowledging you, and you're like, okay, what do I have to do? It's just, sometimes it can be blatant and sometimes it can be, less blatant. But I just think a lot of times if you have folks who have not worked with women on their teams before, or certain ethnic backgrounds, they're not really sure, how to come off. And I think, again, it has to go to the intentional training, how to be purposeful in dealing with others, because what you may take as a joke or just harmless banter at work, it can be hurtful and harmful to other folks, especially depending on what it is. So I've definitely seen that in my time, and not just in the technology space or around STEM, but these are some of the areas that you're going to see it mostly, because, again, these are male dominated spaces. And so, we have to do the intentional work again early on, but also there has to be discussions within the HR departments, within the DE&I groups at these corporations and enterprises. And also, again, like I said, from top down leadership, they have to get in front of this and ahead of it, that they will not tolerate this, because they want everyone to feel comfortable and respected. So, it's something that we're still working through, of course, but we definitely have to do the work to really be intentional. And I think if we all can just put our heads together and really make the intentional effort to, eradicate this type of behavior, we wouldn't have this to stand out as much. But unfortunately, we still have a long way to go with microaggressions in the workplace, and really just a lot of the behavior that we should not have in STEM and tech. But I think, we're long as we keep talking about it and really just really being intentional about trying to eradicate it from the top down, I think that would be very helpful moving forward.
All right, Jennifer. So here's my last question for you. So our research has shown that women in STEM rate the competency of values diversity far higher than their male counterparts. Can you speak to this, and has this been something that's affected your career journey in any way?
Well, for me, I've noticed that women, you just see women everywhere, whether it's an event, a fireside chat, a panel, at a corporation. Usually women, we're out front and center when it comes to value and diversity, because again, just the piece of us knowing what the journey is like being a woman in STEM, being a woman in tech. And we're always trying to reach back to grab others and to get women excited about tech. I know, for instance, for me, and I've worked with several organizations, but starting out, Women Who Code was one of the key organizations that, again, another Find My Tribe community, women in tech, really want to get into the community early. But I would say probably about 4 years ago, 4.5, 5 years ago, I really wanted to take stock of what was going on in the community as far as diversity everywhere. And the different meetups and things I would go to, it would always be women who you would see that would be leaders, that be taking on projects. They would be doing hackathons, but then make it about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I took part, as being a senior leadership fellow for the Women Who Code, the front end community track, where I was the architect, and I was able to build a community of developers who I managed, and evangelists. We had a lot of events where we had men to come in. But, when we would go out to sites such as Home Depot or Accenture or to Microsoft in New York, we had a lot of women who were leading these panels and leading these efforts. And that's not to say men are not there, but it's just something just within us. I think we just have that innate sense of, this is a sisterhood. We want you to be here. We want to have more women to feel comfortable in these STEM spaces, in this technology space. So I think one of the things, again, just building that intentional leadership, piece again, allyship. This is really important. And again, we can't use being an ally or allyship as a hot button topic word that it sounds good, but let's not really put effort behind it. We're saying it because everybody else is saying it. But, I would say, let's just really be intentional and, let's find a way to work together on it, because women, we've been out here for years. And I think for me, in the public speaking that I do, and even at, events that I put on and different things and working with the students, that's one thing that's always been top of mind. And so I think we just kind of have that, we value diversity. We want other women to be here and to feel comfortable. So that's my take on it.
All right. Well, I appreciate your take, and I appreciate you taking some time to hang out with me and talk about just your own experiences and really, put a light on, the conversations that need to be had when it comes to women in leadership, particularly in the world of STEM. So thank you so much for your time. And thank you for just, again, sharing your experiences and your knowledge with our audience. We really appreciate it.
Yes, I really enjoyed this and definitely look forward to all that's coming along that you all are doing. But I was happy to talk about this because STEM and technology, really passionate about this space, and I look forward to all that's to come.
Awesome. And thank you all for listening to our conversation, and we hope you have an amazing day.
You've been listening to The Mindset Advantage. Follow Arcadia Consulting on social media platforms to stay updated.